You may not know what AI is capable of doing until you like dive in a lot more, but I think it's exciting to be at the early stages of this because there's so much more to come.
For decades, the sneaker industry has been stuck, slow to innovate, costly to produce, and leaving creators and consumers on the sidelines. Enter Ben Weiss, a visionary entrepreneur rewriting the rules. With his company, Syntilay, he's building the future of footwear, AI designed, fully 3D printed shoes created in months instead of years. Backed by legends like Reebok founder Joe Foster and Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington, Ben isn't just disrupting sneakers, he's reshaping how innovation and opportunity collide. As the host of the hit podcast Legends and Leaders, where he's featured icons like Kevin O'Leary, Steve Madden, and Howie Mandel, Ben lives at the intersection of bold vision and real-world impact. Today, he joins us on the Midland Money Mindset to share how breaking barriers in business can inspire you to do the same. I'm Larry Sprung, your host for the Midland Money Mindset and founder and wealth advisor of Midland Financial. Let's dive into the show. Well, super excited, as I said, to have Ben Weiss, CEO of Syntilay, and welcome to the show, Ben.
Great to be here with you.
Yeah, really great. So listen, our listeners are truly enamored and always interested about the entrepreneurial journey, as different as they are. Sometimes there's a lot of similarities there. And we'll talk a lot about what you're doing today. But can you give our listeners a little idea of what your entrepreneurial journey has been like up until, founding and becoming the CEO of Syntilay?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a long journey so far, and I'm only 25. But there's been a lot that's already happened. So, I mean, I don't know how much I can share in a few minutes, but to give you an idea, it's been a lot of trying things, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and doubling down on what works. You know, I initially was in more of the NFT space, the crypto space, and I was still doing something with footwear there. And then I moved towards creating a new type of shoe brand to back content creators with their own shoes like athletes. Content creators are some of the most engaged with people in the world. They have amazing audiences. They have great reach, but they never get treated the same way as the basketball athletes do. And we want to give them that opportunity to have their own signature sneakers, to feel like that. And also so that a new generation can walk in their shoes and can go and get that greatness. So I spent a couple of years putting together a team of people that could help me with this, including was fortunate to have the founder of Reebok join our board, Joe Foster, who built Reebok, the best-selling shoe brand in the world. And then one of the sharks from Shark Tank, Kevin Harrington, and some others, and David Meltzer as well, who's a great advisor, and accompanying me in this journey. So I thought that it would, the best chance of success would be getting people that have been there, done that, to be a part of what I'm doing, and then just to use a lot of cold outreach and persuasive, skills to go and get the rest of the team formed and launch product. And we launched the first AI generated 3D printed shoe the world's ever seen, the first AI generated slide, I would say. And it blew up and it got a lot of traction. It was mentioned on the front page of USA Today and in most major papers. We were on Fox Business, on Liz Clayman's show, debuting it, and Bloomberg's biggest show, The Close, because the world wanted to see something different. They wanted to see what AI can do in footwear. And we proved that out and showed the world that. And what was cool is that we were able to also offer people the ability to scan their feet and get custom 3D printed shoes to fit them perfectly, working with Zellerfeld out in Germany, the factory over there. And that has been a really revolutionary experience.
Was there an entrepreneurial background for you? I mean, did you grow up with other entrepreneurs in your family that kind of led you in this direction?
Yeah, it's a good question. So my dad was a co-founder of Enjoy, the e-cig brand, with my uncle Mark. My uncle is considered the father of the electronic cigarette in the United States. He had the vision to bring it over to the U.S. when it was just shifting from a cigar to a cigarette in China, to build a brand around this with the goal of getting people off of smoking. And he did do that. And I mean, there were other brands that came out that catered more towards the youth, which was really what they didn't want to do. And Enjoy in the end became a very big success story. It was bought for around $3 billion. They weren't involved up to the end of it, but it was amazing to see this whole story happen where it was something that the FDA didn't even want to allow into the United States, to the point where it became something in every single 7-Eleven all around the US. So I got to see that journey happen. And I thought, I want to go after something of my own in life and build out my own destiny and work for myself. And that was part of the inspiration, besides what Steve Jobs and people like Elon Musk and others have been able to accomplish.
Yeah, so it sounded like it was in your blood from the start. So, can you share with our listeners, how Syntilay is seeking to disrupt the status quo in the footwear industry? I know you touched on it a moment ago, but perhaps you go a little bit deeper on what that looks like and what it's all about.
Yeah, sure. So Syntilay as a brand is all about the word scintillate, which means to shine, and what we're trying to do is enable people to go and feel like they can be like anybody they want in life, whether you're a top DJ, UFC fighter, a top musician. It shouldn't just be that the athletes are the ones where greatness is associated with. Everybody, you can be great in any category. You could be a great Twitch streamer, a YouTuber. Why can't you walk in those people's shoes? So we need to democratize the process to make signature footwear. We realized if we use AI to design, we could design much faster and lower cost. If we use 3D printing, we can get rid of the mold cost for size 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The half sizes, each one is $2,000 to $4,000 a mold, generally for good molds. And then we also could get rid of the minimum inventory requirement of certain amount of pairs you have to go and commit to if we use printing. So we put this method together and realized this is the best method to back content creators with their own shoes. We can take on a lot more collaborations and do it with a lot less financial risk than you can do traditionally with that type of investment, with those 3 different stages I mentioned earlier being required. So this is what we debuted with the story around the first AI design slide. We proved out the method. It was more expensive earlier in the year in January, February when we debuted it, and now it's far more affordable. It's so affordable that we can offer a custom-made 3D printed shoe to fit you perfectly from an in-person experience in Times Square, New York, where you can get a full 3D model of your feet done there, or online for under $200. So it's pretty much the same price as a traditional shoe. And this has been a lot more better design developments, better production developments. And we've got a great partner, the Tomorrow store in Times Square, that really want to debut something different. So it's come a long way just in 1 year. And I think it's going to go a lot further as we go.
Yeah, I mean, not only have you democratized it and brought the price down, but my understanding is that you've also, reduced the time to create footwear significantly. Like, so, these major manufacturers in some cases are taking up to 18 months, and you're down to 3 months or less. I mean, is it just all AI that's kind of enabled this compressed timeline, or is there more to it?
It's AI is a big piece of that. Like in terms of the typical footwear development process, I mean, you have to go and if you're making a 3D model, you're making it by hand. You're making your patterns and textures by hand. You're doing all your sketches by hand. You're making the final concepts by hand. I mean, it's a lot of work typically. Well, with AI, we're making our 3D model with AI image generation. We're making our patterns and textures with AI, creating those with a pattern and texture model. I mean, we're doing our concept artwork with AI. So we've now taken this process with the first AI design slide. It was 70% of the shoe was made with AI. To even now, we debuted a sneaker, the Luminez shoe, which is 95% generated by AI. So we still have human designers involved. We don't want to replace them, but this just enables them to be more creative, I think, and experiment a lot more than they would because they're usually bogged down with a lot more minutia in how they design. So we're trying to improve the process every step of the way. This is taking the time frame down from 18 months to 3 months to make a new shoe from start to finish and launching it, which is incredible. I mean, the kind of rapid innovation we can have, the areas we can test that typical brands can, it's so superior. With AI generation and design and 3D printing, you can make shoes look like nothing else in the world. I mean, they have shapes that are just impossible traditionally. So you can bring brands and creators to life in ways they never could have with the traditional route. It's not just about taking an existing shoe, putting some colors on it, putting your logo on it and some embroidery. It's about making brand new silhouettes from scratch. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's just now we can do more, so we should do more, and that's what we're trying to do at Syntilay.
Yeah, sounds like you're really using AI to your advantage in a good way, right?
Yeah.
In a very good way that is meeting the consumer where they probably want to be and are interested in being. Now, one of the things you touched on a few minutes ago is the fact that you're working with Reebok founder Joe Foster, who is, he's an absolute icon in the space. What ended up leading to that collaboration?
Sure. So I touched on this a little bit before in terms of why I wanted him on. You really, if you're building a new business, and this is just advice to any entrepreneur, like if you have the opportunity to get somebody who has been there and done that in your category, I mean, you should bring them on and have them become an advisor and even seek that out. Try to find somebody like that. I spent time trying to find the right advisors. I thought it would add a lot of value to what we're doing. I mean, avoiding mistakes, incredible insight, and also visibility is a piece of that too, opening doors for meetings, things like that. So I was looking up just kind of different founders of shoe brands and really specifically looking at what Joe was doing because he created his book Shoemaker, fairly recently when I was looking at this. And it was a great book on his journey and what he did. And I was like, he sold the brand, he could probably become an advisor, or there's at least potential of that. So, if there's potential, might as well shoot your shot, right? So I just reached out to him online and said, "Hey, this is what we're doing, and this is what I would like to be able to build in this space. I think this needs to become a technology category. I think it needs to become smarter." And I said, can you meet with me and talk to me about it? And I wasn't sure I would hear back. I didn't know. But his
Sure.
wife Julie wrote back to me, who's super sweet and been very helpful as well. And I said, we're happy to meet with you. And, they told me that we're coming to Fort Lauderdale shortly after, and I'm in Boca Raton, Florida. So I'm like, I got to get some time in person. I got to push this over the top. Having the founder of Reebok backing what we're doing is going to be incredible. And so got some time in person, talked to him there. And, they're like, we're happy to join you. Yeah, Joe and Julie. And it's been incredible. It's not just like his name's attached to it, which, of course there's value there, but I've met with him a couple hundred times, at this point. He's intimately involved in overseeing all of our footwear development at a higher level. I mean, he's helping with brand strategy. And Julie, his wife, has a ton of insight into footwear manufacturing and development. And I mean, the value ad's incredible, and they're just the sweetest people. So you never know what can happen with cold outreach.
Yeah, sounds amazing. And I would say I didn't know a lot about his story, but I heard him on, I believe he was interviewed on the Entrepreneurs Organization's podcast.
I think
And
so.
It was very interesting to say the least, learning about him and his story.
Yeah, it's a one of a kind story. I mean, there's only a couple of people in the world that have done what he's done, and I think today there's only two people alive, two founders, him and Phil Knight, that have built a brand from scratch to the best selling in the category of footwear. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's quite rare. It's quite incredible, and I mean, he wrote a book on his life that I would recommend anybody, Shoemaker. It's an amazing read of starting with nothing and how he was persistent 10 years for over 10 years trying to find the right North American distribution partner to blow it up in the United States, and didn't give up, kept going to trade shows and figured it out. So there's a lot of resilience there that we try to embody at Syntilay.
I got to ask you this, what made you believe that, the white space for you or for footwear was, working with and working alongside content creators? How did you come to, go down that path?
Well, look, I mean, I'm somebody who's younger. I'm 25 years old, right? So I'm building this brand, and I've grown up with a lot of these content creators. And, there was the initial period of, can these content creators even build real businesses? Can they sustain themselves through content creation? That was a big question. We're now past that phase of the question. And it's now like, how powerful are content creators? And you see what Logan Paul and KSI did with Drink Prime, how that did over $1 billion in sales at a point. How Mr. Beast is, completely dominated with Feastables. I mean, these creators now are brands. And there's a lot of key differences and reasons why we want to bet on creators. One of which is that, if you look at the athlete, right, and the athletes are great. And there's a lot of athletes also that deserve backing in the space that we want to back. But if you look at the athletes, their audience is a byproduct of their performance somewhere else. So if you perform well in X game, then you get a following and you get engagement around that. Whereas with the creator, their audience is their product. And their audience grows because of what they do. Like, it is a consistent engagement that it builds their audience. It's not dependent on something else. That's very different. And that's very powerful as well. And so I think that this relationship that creators have is such an important relationship. A lot of brands today only really recognize the value when it comes to looking at them as digital real estate. It's like, this person has X amount of likes and engagement and, views on their videos. This is what they're valued at. If we were kind of comparing this to, like, we're going to do typical billboards or, typical ad spend. But there's so much more than that. And I think that just no one's really taken advantage of it because it takes a first mover, to try that. And look, if you're going to go do this a traditional route, I mean, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not $1 million plus, to even go build a new silhouette and back somebody. That's a lot of risk, especially for, brands that may be struggling. So with our method, we don't have to do that. So now we can try, the barrier to entry is removed, and we needed to build something that made that possible. And now we have it.
So are you saying that, like, for an athlete, for example, not that they don't have a following or they don't have the ability to highlight, your product or anybody else's product, but if they're, to use your example, an ex gamer, right, and they don't, they get hurt, they get injured, and their career's over, that could have a significant impact to their following. Whereas a digital creator, they don't have the same level of risk as the athlete does. Is that what you're kind of saying?
I wouldn't say it like that. I think that athletes are amazing and that they serve a really great purpose. It's just, if you look at what young people are saying today, you ask a young person, who do you want to be when you grow up? More often than not, they'll say YouTuber. They'll Let's say I want to be a TikTok influencer, a Twitch streamer. So just the influence has shifted. And part of the reason the influence has shifted is because of who those people are, these creators. They're engaging with these audiences every single day, multiple times a day. Whereas when it comes to the athlete, their audience is developed as a byproduct of their performance somewhere else. And it's not as much of a relationship based like kind of, it's not like relationship based in the same way. Like the creator is talking to you through the YouTube video. They're talking, like, that's why you're seeing a lot of these athletes become creators in a sense. Like you see what the F1's done with some of their top racers. Like they're producing vlog content, which makes sense. And a lot of these athletes are shifting too. I don't think one's better than the other. I just think that the creators engage differently, and that engagement's really powerful, which is why everyone's shifting there. And these people just aren't valued in the same way. Like the brands today don't treat the creators the same way that the athletes have been treated, when this is what the youth wants to be. So these are the people we want to make shoes for, and we want the youth to feel like they can walk in their shoes.
Great perspective. Yeah. Imagine a relationship where financial conversations don't feel stressful, but actually bring you joy. We've designed a guide to help you have positive, meaningful money conversations with your partner. This isn't just another budgeting tool, it's a roadmap for building trust and connection. So if you're ready to start a joyful money journey with your partner, go to Mytland.us/couplesjoy and download your free guide. Transform your financial future together, starting today. Listen, I'm a dad of a son who has a tremendous shoe collection, loves shoes, and he's just somebody that, I can't even talk about his begin where to talk about his collection. It's so vast, and it amazes me how interesting and committed those that enjoy shoes are in that space. So I have to ask you, why did you go in the direction of slides and not sneakers? What was the strategy there initially?
Well, the part of the reason we did a slide is because it was easier to do initially, and also lower cost. Like if we were going to make a sneaker at that point in time, it was going to have to be over $200. We were going to have to sell that sneaker for a pretty premium price point. Whereas with the slide, I could make this, when it came out, it was the most affordable fully 3D printed shoe we saw in the world. It was $150 version one of the Explorer slide. So we thought if we can make it at least somewhat accessible, as accessible as possible, that would make this opportunity much more beneficial for the people that really need a custom fitted shoe, the people that actually just want to try the experience and wear something that's futuristic and first of its kind, a collector's item. So that made sense, from an affordability standpoint. And we've really changed a lot in terms of our learnings from there and what we build, future designs. Like we've made our designs much better because of that understanding we took from the first ones.
Do you feel like you wouldn't have been able to be where you are today had you started with the sneaker versus the slide?
I don't know if it would have been as big of a story as well, or as much of a kind of coming out as Syntilay as a brand if it would have been a sneaker. I think that the slide was more exciting for us to do. Just because like the slide category is so popular right now, and there are just like so many sneakers out there, but I would say there's a lot less slides. And if you do something different with slides, like what we did, like our slide, the Explorer slide, had a yacht bridge on the top of it. Like it looked like a yacht. It was curved like a boat, but then it had these spaceship textures on it. So there was more of an opportunity, I would say, to reinvent the category initially, which was exciting to us, and that kind of, the story was built around that. Like there was an article that Arizona Republic did that they put on it was like a full page, graphic they created that was like slide into the future. So there was just a lot of exciting kind of creative branding and stuff that came out of that we really liked.
Yeah, so it sounds like that really allowed you to kind of develop really well, because you went where, I guess, the blue ocean strategy, so to speak, right?
We could have done a sneaker too.
Really
sneaker would have been great, but we wanted to do a slide, and we had a great designer we worked with that was very talented in making slides, Kedar Benjamin, that had this interesting approach we could work with him on with AI designing it that he was very good with, specifically for slides too. So that lent towards this category.
Nice. Yeah. Now, I've heard you say that Syntilay is going to be able to build in America. What about your process has allowed that to become possible?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the vision. We would like to be able to build in America. We haven't made any announcements or anything around that yet, and it's our goal. I would just say that building in America for what we're doing is much more possible than the traditional route. And there's been some industry leaders that have talked about how you can't bring back the same type of skilled labor you find in Asian countries to the US. I mean, some of this stuff is the way they design and develop is passed on from generation to generation. They have an intricate network of factories, not just the factory themselves. They have a supplier over here, over there in the region. I was just in China. You just see how it's built. Like, it's very interconnected. When it comes to 3D printing shoes, which is what we're doing now, everything we've been producing that's been released today has been all 3D printed. You don't have the same labor. You can have a printer set up, you can have filament, and you can print, and you don't really have much of any labor. So you remove that hurdle. It's been such a big hurdle for made in the USA. And then it just becomes about having the right location for printers, being able to handle the demands of them, and then producing the filament for the printers. And, that I think is a much more viable path to made in America. And I think it's a path that we could eventually have printers in every single localized region based on how much demand is in those regions. So, I mean, that's kind of part of the vision of what we're trying to build at Syntilay. And I think it makes made in the USA possible. And I think it makes made in the USA potentially rivaling the costs of made in Asia.
I think everywhere you go these days, and our conversation included here, people are having conversations about AI, right? I mean, it's just you can't get away from it. And given that you're building a business around AI, what do you think our listeners should know about its power, whether they're a consumer or even some kind of manufacturer or service provider, and they're an entrepreneur themselves? What do you think it's really vital for them to know about the power of AI?
Yeah, I mean, I would just suggest that every company, every entrepreneur, just looks at what they do and then tries to evaluate what can be automated and have AI help with that, and even maybe bring an outside developer to help with automation, because there are a lot of ways AI can help you that maybe you wouldn't even be aware of. But I would just try to look at what you're doing and see what can be automated. AI is very advanced, in a lot of areas. Some areas it's not. But we saw AI image generation. We're like, why can't AI generate shoes? If it can generate high quality concept artwork, can't we just move it to the next phase? And then we experimented and we figured out there was a lot we could do in that category and a lot that was possible. So you may not know what AI is capable of doing until you dive in a lot more, but it's definitely worth diving in. I think it's exciting to be at the early stages of this because there's so much more to come. But there's ways it can change your life right now, pretty much anybody. So it's important to just take advantage of it.
Do you see it more of a AI kind of taking over and displacing people, or is it more of a redistribution of talent, meaning that people are just going to have to get trained differently in different roles, because it's not going to be that everything's going to get replaced, but there's going to definitely be a shift in what needs to be done and what needs human power versus what needs AI power. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I don't see people being necessarily replaced entirely. I think there are roles that are going to go away for sure. In the same way that there are roles that went away when the computer was created, and at least the personal computer, and became much more mainstream. I see it replacing certain jobs, sure, but I see it creating a lot more other jobs. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity now if you understand how to write prompts really well, and in all different, and that's in all different categories.
That should be a college course, right?
Yeah.
In itself.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunities in AI. I think that even what we're doing now, we're not trying to replace the designer. We're just trying to give the designer more of an opportunity to be creative. We've seen even from our tests, you let AI go and create something itself without human input. It's just not as nice. So the human skill piece is very valuable in general. And we've seen that it's valuable in collaboration with AI. And AI is just not capable of doing the same stuff without that human skill piece. So I think it's something interesting to note that there's a lot of value. I think just pieces of what people have done before are definitely going to go away. But there's a lot more other new exciting things that can come up because of that. And we need to focus much more on that. I'm not one of these people AI is going to replace everything. It's the end of the world. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think it's going to change the world. I don't think it's going to replace everybody. But yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. One of the things you kind of glossed over earlier, which I think is vitally important, especially for the entrepreneur listening, or really anybody, in terms of, the power of outreach and the power of sending that cold email that you sent, right? I think there's such an importance there that many people in today's generation, it's lost on them to reach out. I think, there are so many opportunities, more so today than when I was growing up, for example, where you can have a mentor mentor without actually meeting that mentor, right? Because you could watch them on YouTube, you could read their books, you could read their writings, but there's also something to sending that cold email and reaching out for their assistance and guidance. Can you talk a little bit about that for the entrepreneur who's listening, who might be struggling, who could really benefit from having somebody that they could lean on potentially, even just for a little bit of advice and guidance to help save them from maybe making some mistakes that the entrepreneur who, has been super successful has already made?
Yeah. I mean, I think the cold outreach is super underrated. You hear some people talk about it and the importance of it, but a lot of people don't know how to do it. You look at, for example, just LinkedIn. LinkedIn is such a powerful tool. I'm on LinkedIn probably every single day. I've gotten many different types of deal opportunities through LinkedIn. I've closed deals through LinkedIn by posting, by connecting with people. I mean, that's a great cold outreach opportunity right there. You optimize your profile, you make it look good, make it explain what you're doing really succinctly, and there's a lot of opportunity. I think there's a lot of, in terms of cold outreach, that people don't take advantage of in person in their networking events near them. I mean, I'm fortunate to be in Boca Raton, Florida, which is an amazing place. It's right near Miami. Miami has had so many new entrepreneurs come to it. And there are literally events every single week with somebody interesting, somebody doing something, an opportunity to engage with them, to learn from them, to collaborate with them. There's definitely events going on. And I would encourage anybody to go out, connect with people. I got a lot of great opportunities through there, and I've learned a ton of things, and I've built great friendships with people through these events. And most often, I just think tons of people just don't take advantage of these things, and they should be.
Do you think, is part of the challenge, like LinkedIn, for example, and not to pick on them, but I'm just picking them out because you mentioned them, right? I think one of the challenges there, in my opinion, is there are a lot of people who are using it the wrong way for that cold outreach. And I would call it not cold outreach, cold spamming, right? And I think, I get hundreds of messages a week from people on LinkedIn. You get them too, I'm sure, right? So can you maybe just delineate, how does your idea of this cold outreach differ from that? Because I think that's an important piece for entrepreneurs to understand that you don't want to be that spammer. You want to do this intentionally.
Yeah, sometimes you have people that send you messages, and you probably see these, and it's just like, here's what I want to do for you, here's what I want to get paid, kind of stuff like that.
Right.
Like I never sent any
selling right off the bat.
Selling before I even know you. You also have to have a real value add. I've worked very hard to have a value add to people and to build that up. And, and I've seen I get more feedback and more responses as my value add grows. And I think it's just about communicating what you can do for other people right away. And I think it's about doing something exciting and different. We're building shoes with artificial intelligence designing. That's entirely different. There hasn't been one shoe like that, released from a major brand yet. But I think it's just about also just the progress in your own journey too that helps with things. And I think it's just about communicating the value add to people right away.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, Ben, listen, it's been a pleasure having you on, and we ask each of our guests the same final question because our listeners are always hanging on to hear every entrepreneur's answer to this question, which is, what did you do today that brought you joy and put you in the right mindset for success?
It's a good question. I would say I did the gym. Going to the gym in the morning is a complete game changer. Getting into a consistent fitness routine is massive. I was at a point in my life where I wasn't in that. I was not as productive, not as happy, more stress. And I've really worked hard to build that into my routine and to do it first thing in the morning. And it's, put me on a completely different trajectory. And I think everybody needs to do it. I would recommend it to any entrepreneur. Don't take care of your health once you've made it. Take care of your health right away, and you'll see the results. So that's something that made me happy, and I'm doing good. What about you, Larry? I
didn't exercise yet today. I'm an evening exercise guy, but I usually start out my day by literally I get out of bed, I down a big glass of cold water to wake up from the inside, get hydrated, and then I meditate usually for 10 minutes to get the day started, and then I end the day with a workout.
That sounds good.
I agree with you. I think it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs forget about, and they leave their health till later. And it's something you just can't do. You have to address it all on the way. So congrats to you for, starting that and recognizing that at an early age. I did not, but I'm here now and probably in the best shape and health of my life.
Amazing.
So it's good once you get there for sure. So listen, Ben, we're going to have all of your information in the show notes, but if people want to learn more about you, connect with you, learn more about Syntilay and everything you guys are up to, what's the easiest and the best place for them to do that?
Sure. So Syntilay.com, Syntilay.com. that's where you can see our shoes. If you want to get your feet fitted for custom 3D printed shoes, the experience is awesome. You can do it with your phone. You just take a photo of each foot next to a piece of paper. We use AI to get your measurements and give you a really amazing fit experience. So there's that, Syntilay.com. If they want to connect with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just type me in there, or any social platform, on Facebook, Instagram, wherever it is. Happy to connect and hear anything you may have about this episode.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Ben. I appreciate you taking out the time to spend with us and our listeners, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry.
Ben, thank you for being with us on the Midland Money Mindset. Your journey from challenging a broken footwear industry to building AI designed 3D printed shoes with Syntilay and sharing wisdom through your Legend and Leaders podcast reminds us that true innovation starts with courage. You've shown us what it means to dream bigger, break barriers, and create impact that lasts. Your story doesn't just change shoes, it inspires people to step into a future filled with possibility. Ben Weiss and Syntilay can be found across most social media platforms. All the contact information needed to find them can be found in the show notes.